Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I welcome you to the series History, Science and Faith in Islam. Today's session will cover the Battle of Ankara, fought between Timur and Bayezid of the Ottomans in the year 1402. From India, Timur turned towards Baghdad. The year was 1400. Facing him were an array of foes extending in an arc from Iraq through Syria, Turkey, and into the Caucasus. He was cognizant of the strength of the Ottoman Turks and initially wished to avoid a confrontation with them. But the westward march of the Tartars was bound to run up against the equally expansive Ottomans. The cause for hostilities was provided by the flight of some of Timur's foes into Ottoman territories, where they received the traditional Turkish protection. Timur wrote to the Ottoman Sultan Bayezid, asking that the fugitives be expatriated. The response was not only negative, it was insulting. Further correspondence followed, more insults traded, until it was clear that a test of strength between the two giants was inevitable. Timur could have taken Baghdad as he went, but he always planned his moves with the meticulous care of a great conqueror. First, he focused on clearing his flanks, moving up the headwaters of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in modern Turkey. He captured the key city of Sivas. The defending Turkish contingent fled. From there, Timur sent detachments towards Georgia and the Caucasus Mountains, eliminating the Georgian and Armenian crusaders who had menaced his rearguard. Then he turned west and advanced towards Syria. His objective was to neutralize the Mamluks before undertaking a test of strength with the Ottomans so that his flank would not be threatened from Cairo. Mamluk armies were camped in Aleppo, a heavily defended walled city with high ramparts. The Tatars lured the Mamluks from their fortified positions. A great battle ensued in which the Mamluks were soundly trounced and were sent reeling south towards the Sinai. Timur took Aleppo and moved on Damascus. In 1401, Damascus surrendered and the Mamluks sued for peace. The terms of surrender were negotiated for the Mamluks by no less a person than the great historian Ibn Khaldun, author of Muqaddamah. Ibn Khaldun was at the time serving the Mamluk sultans of Cairo. Damascus met the same fate as had earlier befallen Isfahan, Delhi, and a host of other cities. The city was sacked, set on fire, and was almost obliterated. Timur captured the artisans and architects of the city and sent them to Samarkand to work on his many projects. It is said that it was in Damascus that Timur saw a pomegranate-shaped dome that adorned one of the mosques. This dome, further refined, was erected on many a tomb in Samarkand. 200 years later, through Timur's descendants, the great Mughals in India perfected the same concept, and it found its sublime expression in the dome of the Taj Mahal. With his flanks cleared, Timur retraced his steps to Baghdad. The Ottomans were still busy in Europe. In 1386, the powerful Sultan Bayezid of the Ottomans had defeated the Serbs at the Battle of Kosovo and had forged ahead into Bulgaria in 1392 and lands beyond the Danube. Therefore, Timur had the luxury of laying siege to the city with careful deliberation. Sultan Ahmad of Baghdad fled and left the city in charge of a lieutenant. His name was Nuruddin, who valiantly defended the city. Baghdad, despite the ravages of the Mongols, was still a city to be reckoned with militarily. It was defended on one side by the waters of the Tigris River, and on the other by high walls manned by long-range batteries. But Nuruddin could not withstand the onslaught of the Tartars, and the city fell. General slaughter followed in the fashion of Timurid conquest. Chroniclers report that 21 towers of skulls were erected in the city. The buildings, save the mosques and the Sufi zaviyas, were pulled down. This was the final coup de grace for Baghdad, a city that was once the crown jewel of the world. After Timur, Baghdad was to remain a provincial capital at best, with the glory of the past inscribed only in the stones that lay scattered around the once mighty monuments. Timur had subdued the Georgians, forced the Mamluks to pay him tribute, conquered the great city of Baghdad, and was now ready to face the Ottomans. In the ensuing struggle between the two great conquerors, Timur of Tartar and Bayezid of the Ottomans, one sees a contrast between careful planning on one side and casual overconfidence on the other. Timur made every move with meticulous care, gathering intelligence about the movements of his foe, while carefully concealing his own. Reinforcements were brought in, both from Samarkand and Afghanistan. Bayezid, on the other hand, appeared so confident that his usual prudence deserted him. He moved leisurely from the plains of Hungary through the Balkans, crossed the Bosphorus, and moved to his camp at Ankara. From there, he advanced towards Sivas with an army of over 100,000, expecting to confront the enemy. But Timur was a consummate soldier. He knew that the Ottoman strength was in its infantry, which was well disciplined, well armed, and the most formidable in the world. Eluding the Turkish advance towards him, Timur swung around the Ottoman armies towards Ankara. Bayezid was well over 100 miles from Ankara when he heard that the Tatars were headed for his home base. He was forced to turn around to protect his base, but it was too late. Timur had already occupied Ankara and the Ottoman camps. Furthermore, the Tatars diverted the waters of the Ankara River and poisoned the only other supply of water in the area, a fresh water fountain. By the time the Turks arrived at Ankara, they had marched a long distance and were tired, hungry, and thirsty. The Turkish Sultan had been checkmated, denied access to water. Bayezid had to order an assault against the powerful and mobile Tatar cavalry. The battle was lost before it started. The Ottoman infantry, which was until that time invincible in defensive warfare, was no match for the swift cavalry of Timur. Within hours of the start of battle, over 50,000 Turks lay dead on the battlefield. Bayezid fought bravely, but was captured and was brought back to Timur in a cage. There, in the tent of the mighty Tatar conqueror, he had to bear the humiliating indignity of watching his household brought in naked. The heartbroken Bayezid died in captivity 3 months later. Thus was the end of one of the bravest soldiers amongst the Turks, and undoubtedly one of his most renowned conquerors. Timur advanced to Constantinople, but did not cross the straits into Europe. The Ottoman Empire, which was almost annihilated, survived under Suleiman, the resilient son of Bayezid, and went on to become the most powerful empire in the world during the following centuries. The Battle of Ankara in 1402 provides a benchmark in Islamic history. It was the last of the great battles fought by Timur. He had brought an end to the Tughlaq dynasty in India, destroyed the Golden Horde, and set the Russians free, displaced the Muzaffars in Persia, eliminated the Fatimid assassins, razed Baghdad to the ground, humbled the Mamluks of Egypt, and had nearly extinguished the Ottoman Empire. He had destroyed the old world order, and a new order was in the making. But the great conqueror was not yet satisfied. His ambition was to conquer the world. Returning to Samarkand, he made preparations for a march on China. Within 3 months, he was on the move again at the head of 300,000 soldiers towards Beijing. But death claimed this mighty conqueror at the age of 69 in 1405, and China was spared the ravages suffered by the rest of the known civilized world. Timur had welded together an empire by the force of his will, uniting the warring Tatars into the most feared fighting machine in the world since the days of Genghis Khan. With his death, this imposed unity fell apart, and the far-flung provinces of the Timurid Empire asserted their independence one by one, except its core in Central Asia and Persia, which was inherited by the enlightened Shah Rukh, son of Timur. This concludes our session on the Battle of Ankara. In the next session, inshallah, we'll cover the conquest of Constantinople, an event of global importance. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.